G'day, Dave here, and we're looking at Titus and chapter 1, verse 7. Paul, the apostle, has left Titus on the island of Crete to appoint overseers, elders within the households. That is, he's appointing leaders within the church. And he wants people to be good leaders, he wants them to teach the truth, and he wants them to back that up in the way that they live. And so he's been writing to Titus to call upon him to find people who are blameless, not sinless people, but people who aren't hypocrites. They're not open to accusation. Their lives are backing up what they teach. And in this verse, verse 7, there are 5 behaviours that should not be on display amongst God's people. They shouldn't be part of our habits. They shouldn't be filling our lives. This should be stuff that we avoid if we're going to be leading in the church. Hear these words. As an overseer of God's household, he must be blameless, not arrogant, not hot-tempered, not an excessive drinker, not a bully, and not greedy for money. These characteristics are incredibly selfish, self-obsessed. Now, I want to explore with us this question about how to find suitable leaders. Because as I look at the strategies that people use for finding those who are going to be good leaders within the church, there are a number of things that people have identified. Competency is a big one. Looking at a person who's going to be fit for the task. That is, if it's a preacher you want, they're a good preacher. If it's a leader that you want, they're a good leader. If they're an administrator you're after, they're a good administrator. Pastor, evangelist, whatever it might be. Competency. Along with that, the right convictions. They believe the gospel, they believe the truth, and they live that out and they speak the truth. And then you might explore things about whether they're a good cultural fit for that community, whether the chemistry will work well with other staff and so on. And then there's the question of character, what their life is like. It's been said that so many people in Christian leadership have been appointed because of their competency, and yet they get sacked because of their character. We need to recognise that fundamental to Christian leadership is godly character. We need to see people whose lives are being changed and transformed. And here in this verse, there are a number of areas that can take hold of and they can affect people badly. In verse 7, and the third of these topics, we see not an excessive drinker. That is not addicted to, not obsessed with, not constantly seeking after the next drink, not being drunk, not being an alcoholic, because these behaviours, as well as being unhealthy and ungood and not good for yourself, they're fundamentally antisocial, selfish, uncaring and harmful to others. And I know that there are some who could testify to the incredible harm that's been done by fathers who are alcoholic and abusive and violent towards their mothers, towards their children. People have suffered greatly at the hands of those who cannot control their drinking. As we come to be appointing people in God's household, we need to recognise the fact that alcoholism destroys homes. It brings huge costs in people's lives and costs ultimately to our whole society. And it shouldn't be this way in the church. We need people who are controlled, self-controlled, people who are sober in their attitudes and in their life. People who aren't addicted to things. Now, of course, there's particular harm when it comes to alcohol, but it's a part of a characteristic that is harmful in other areas. That is, our addictions feed neglect of those people around about us. When I was younger, before I got married, I was incredibly addicted to playing pinball machines. I would play them sometimes all night, and I became very good at it. And prior to getting married, Fiona, my wife, made it very clear that it was pinball machines or her. So I said goodbye to it. No, I gave up playing pinball machines, and I've never done it since. But then computers came along, and I found similar addictions. And of course, there are so many things that can demand our time, that can fill and obsess our minds. It might be playing golf, it might be running, it might be cycling, it might be surfing, it might be watching TV, it might be playing on my phone, it might be the reading of novels. There could be a whole bunch of things that we're addicted to. It might be drinking, it might be eating, it might be some other thing that is so much tying us to one type of behaviour that we just fail to love those around about us. And friends, this is not to be with those who would lead God's people. You can't serve others properly if you're obsessed with something that's tying up all your time, all your focus, and all your energy. So let us give up addictive behaviours. And if you find that hard to do, and of course you'll find it hard to do, because we reprogram our brains by constantly focusing on the same thing, whether it's the screen, whether it's the alcohol, whether it's the kind of endorphins that come through exercise or whatever it might be. We might need help. And I'd encourage us to reach out to others, to find help, to give up our obsessive behaviours so that we have more time and more love to give in serving those around us.